Marco, in regards to the Venezuelan government emptying their prisons, is this fake news? Do you have anyone who knows if this is real or not real? Do you have any inference on this as someone who's got Venezuelan connections?
I mean, it's just my opinion. There's whatever I say is based on what I think. It's not,
Okay.
I don't have any real stats. But what I can say is, going back to with the point that we were discussing before, um, if an individual want to come to United States, let's say you're a criminal, and then there's no way you can come to United States without a legal process, and actually a legal process that will cost you less than come with a coyote, crossing all central, uh, you know, Central America, and then going through the border and paying $5,000-$10,000 to a coyote, and then somehow catch you and then send you back, and then you got to do it again and again and again, and die while trying, as so many people have. So if you have some sort of a process where, hey, you give me your documentation, just let me review it, it probably take you a month or two, and then pay me whatever, $2,000, $1,000, $500, whatever. So I can allow you a legal visa to come in. And then somehow, if you behave, I give you, your Social Security, and then you deserve it. I give you, a permit, job card, whatever. But if you do that correctly, then the criminals will not apply, because if they apply, they're gonna find out you're a criminal. So the issue is, how do you filter those guys before? And the issue, at least in my country, there's no relationships between Venezuela and United States. So the embassy is closed. Back in the days, 15, 20 years ago, when it was open, people can freely go into the embassy and then request their visa. That's a standard procedure. So now it's so tough that the people have to find another way to do it, and actually cost them more. And people dying while trying. So
is there documentation in Venezuela that you existed though, Marco, that you could prove I am Marco Jove? Here's my
of course. I have my passport, Venezuelan passport, my cedula, which is my ID. I just went to Venezuela about a year and a half ago, less than a year and a half ago, and I can come going back and forward.
And there's a public record of you
of
living
course.
in Venezuela, that if you committed a crime, it would be included on that record.
Yeah, I mean, the system in Venezuelan government, it will show with your fingerprints and everything, with your ID, your passport. Hopefully, trusting the data that the country has. But my thinking is, if you do it through all the countries, then this might be mitigated. Because if you're a criminal, and that's a topic that we're trying to figure out how to stop, then if the only way to come is through a filter process, the criminal will not apply. That's kind of a little bit my point.
And if everyone could get through everyone who's not a criminal could make it through the filter process without too many barriers.
I mean, it's I don't know. I mean, that's not I don't know my stand on that. But at least you have to prove. For example, if you tell an American officer that you're going to come for vacation, and you cannot prove that you can self-sustain yourself in your country, the officer might think, well, if you don't have a job, if you don't know where to live, if you don't have a house, if you don't, whatever, how come are you paying a vacation to, Disney World to go and see, Mickey?
I would suggest that it's not the government's business to dabble in economic affairs like that. They're not very good at it.
Well,
they're really bad at it.
They should. I mean, my proposal would be, let's put some filters based on your economics. You don't have to be a millionaire to do it. I was not not even close to a millionaire. I mean, you don't have to have money to come here. You at least have to prove yourself to be certain things what they're looking for. What specifically, I don't know.
Who is better at managing economic situations, the market itself or the government?
Trevor, I think there still has to be somebody that says you can't come in to some people. And I think this is the sad part of...
I don't think anyone here disagrees with that.
But how many? How many?
Who are they saying it to? And that's another great.
No. The number.
How many is too many? Yeah.
No. Literally the number of people. So you go, hey, can we find 320 million population of the U.S. people that want to come to this country? And if you have an open border, they just could, and you would have a replacement of the body of people that are working. You would have that.
So who would be better at figuring that out? Right? What institution or individual would be better at figuring that number out, the correct amount? The market, through its set of prices and incentives and inherent forces, or some government bureau?
I think the government bureau. Honestly, for this one, I'm all pro markets. I'm pro markets for business. But when it comes to what the government's role is, and what's the rule? If you're a nation, if you have your own currency, your own bylaws, and borders that you're able to defend, and if you don't have those three things, you don't have a country. Because if you don't have a border, because if you can't defend your border, then you don't have a country. You've got nothing. You've got other people who coming. You can't if you don't have ability.
Yeah, but you're conflating invading armies with immigrants, which is kind of silly to be honest.
You don't have a border. No, but it's not. And this is the point. Because if you've got 300 million people, which you could find out there, who want to walk across the border, then you would have that.
And do no harm.
That would do massive harm. If you're talking about bringing in 300 million people to the United States who did not grow up here with U.S. values, U.S. work ethics, U.S. law, whatever education, whatever you've got within a first world country that we still are right now, and you were bringing in this, and this is the argument, and I am making a bit of a.
There's just no evidence to support that argument. There's no when you put that to an empirical test, it falls apart.
It does not. If you talk about the same argument of saying you bring in 300 million people from a third world country into a first world country, the first world country will no longer be a first world country. It will be a third world country. It is the population of people that make up the country, and the principles.
This is just hyperbole.
It's not. How can you even say that? If you brought in 300
I can say that because there's measurements on this.
Hey, that document that you showed, Trevor, where was that? So you said that it was from the National Academies, right?
I still want to beat this point a little bit further home. If you brought in 300 million people from a third world country who are not educated and they come to the U.S., this country would no longer look like anything like it does right now. And I'm surprised you would say that it wouldn't.
Here's why I would say it. All right. The least contribution, an undocumented immigrant, which probably has little to no education, right, is contributing at least $25,000 to the GDP. So 300 million would do 300 million times 25,000.
Not even close. Not
you're
close.
You're sitting here on one hand, Trevor. You're saying, "Hey, I don't want to the government should keep its hand out of the economic."
I mean, I'm talking hypothetically.
Economic status to justify your position.
You can't just take that
the document that you showed earlier. What year was that published in?
The most recent version of it,
2016 is the one that
2018, I think I read.
Just last year, in the last 2 years.
Trevor, there's people.
Where's the link to that? Because I'm on the National Academies right now, and the only.
So the national. So to clarify, the National Academies, they published theirs in I think 2017. The one that I showed you, the Cato Institute, they came in and they replicated what the National Academies of Science did, and then they applied with the current data.
You're actually quoting a statistic, not from the organization that actually did the study, but they adjusted the study to fit where they expect, right?
They brought it current. They use the same methodology.
You're sitting here trying to tell us that
no.
You got to go to the quote. You got to go to the quote, but at the same time, you're using a statistic that was a replication of another statistic, which, by the way,
they use the same methodology and brought it current.
Let me quote what is on the on this National Academies of Science. So this is the type of organization that is producing immigration and that data as far as immigration goes.
You know, while you're bringing that up, Edwin, Trevor, those numbers would not hold up if you brought in 300 million.
No, probably not. But I'm saying let the market decide that.
So if the Cato Institute took the National Academies of Sciences report and then they did their own update, so that's a replica of the actual data. Where did the actual data? What was the view that actual data? Here is a quote from Dr. McNutt, who is the National Academy of Sciences, I guess, lead person.
Mm-hmm.
And now National Academy of Sciences is historically focused on medicine, not necessarily immigration.
Yeah.
And her approach, Dr. Mitnick's approach, is important to the National Academies step up the game to help the nation recover and advance diversity, equity, and inclusion. She has stressed that these issues are strongly linked and cannot be separated. Now, this is for a organization that is supposed to be for medicine, right? And yet that medical organization, Academy of Sciences, is putting out an immigration statistic that now another organization, the Cato Institute, is then taking that and adjusting it. I'm sorry, like, yes, statistics are important. However, where the statistic and the foundation of how that statistic is being viewed is also important. So my question to you, I know we're on immigration, but what about the COVID vaccine? Like, what are you in favor of as far as vaccines and medicines that the government pushes or doesn't push?
I mean, I didn't get vaccinated, but I think people should just decide for themselves whether or not they get it. Simple as that.
I absolutely agree. However, this organization that is dictated, and NIH is closely related to
whether or not that institution should exist is a great question. But as far as like where do I go then to get the closest thing to the best information that exists possible? Like, where do I go to get it? Right? The National Academy of Science produced something. Their sources include the current population survey data sets from the U.S. Census. Like, I got
specialty is medicine. And based on their lead for that section,
so Cato independently,
diversity, equity, and inclusion.
So Cato independently went and got their own data, and then they applied the same methodology.
Where did they get the data?
From mostly the Census Bureau.
You know, the data.
Another government organization that you also.
What else? What other resources do we have? The government's the only people that are like, in fact, trying to go around and count.
Statistics from the very organization that you want to abolish. So, I mean, you got to pick a side,
no, I don't. I got to find the best information available, and not run on assumptions.
Well, there's two thoughts
that
here.
You're getting is from organizations that have a bias. They have a slant.
So everyone does, including all of us here. But I'm not just going to sit around and assume that governments or that all immigrants are criminals, or that they have higher crime rates than native-born citizens, or that they increase crime rates by entry without at least going and finding some institution that has tried to actually accumulate, aggregate information, and produce a statistic.
So do you think the government right now that has a completely open policy towards immigration and wants everybody in is going to put out data that negates their very stance?
Yeah, I think the Census Bureau is really good at counting stuff.
You know, Trevor, I
do think
they counted the jobs over the summer that we were supposed to have 800,000.
They're better than anyone else trying to do it. They're better than anyone else. They make mistakes, but like at the end of the day, there's no one else trying to count stuff.
$200,000 job is just the mistakes.
Yeah, okay. you can always find an anecdote to like say, oh, this organization is bad. And most government organizations suck. But I would say that the Census Bureau can count most of the time.
Okay, within all of these stats, the problem is that the stats are being used to create a narrative. And right now we're evidencing how those stats are being used for a narrative. The narrative is that, well, we don't have good numbers. This is all we have. And the answer is, well, no, we do use data points to make our own decisions. And there's two things that came up in this. When you say the market will decide whatever that number is, the market won't decide. The market will result. So when you're talking about bringing in a mass number of people into the U.S., they might all live here. They might all get, some kind of a roof. They'll have a place with better roads, better systems in general, better infrastructure. But that does not mean all of a sudden they'll all be making that much money. It doesn't just multiply 300.
But what reason is there to be concerned that if allowed, 300 million people would just walk in? Because that's not a thing that's currently happening. There's like 30 million immigrants in this country that have accumulated over the last 50 years. You're talking about a 10x.
This is only the point of being brought in with saying, like, you can't defend your borders and you don't have a country because you can just have anyone just come in, especially.
So you're just making up this hypothetical situation where 10 times the number of immigrants.
Trevor, hold on. I'm going to finish my statement. Where people are coming in and they have voting rights, they have resources that are being allocated to them that we all have here, that we all pay for, that we all pay into our taxes, and we're receiving. These people are getting it, and they're coming in and they are becoming a voting body to be able to do that. And Edwin just brought up something else. DEI. Now, the DEI in itself is actually what DEI does is it says that they're giving special treatment to individuals who are of color. That means that you've got preferential treatment happening to these individuals in addition. So in California, we don't have a nationalized healthcare plan, but we do have a system where you've got illegal immigrants who are getting medical benefits within the state of California. We've got the highest taxes in the country. We've now got rent control statewide. We've got measures on the ballots that are trying to make rent control worse. These are issues that are coming up as a result of having more people within a state that is not able to prove voting is done accurately, that are taking services, and the state is having problems. Massive problems, including crime problems, and you're going, well, hey, you don't have exact numbers, so you can't use that stuff.
Do you have any numbers?
I can. To be honest, Trevor, I hate using like exact numbers, because I don't want to be held to some kind of thing where we're in this point where we're going, hey, these are the issues. I don't need those numbers to be.
You just want to say what you want and not be challenged to provide some sort of source that indicates proof.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
That's what's happening right now. If my numbers are no good, then show me better numbers.
I'm saying that I should have been, if I knew we were going to have a numbers debate, I would have brought numbers to this. But my point is, I don't need to have.
Yeah, it sounds to me like Trevor already knew that this is what we're going to talk about. He was like, "Oh, I'm going to go and do all the research.
I'm going to have all these numbers
rebut me in the middle of the conversation."
You want to come back next week and
we might have.
I was laying in bed last night looking at this stuff, guys. I took 30 minutes.
But here's the thing, guys. I don't think we're ever going to get exact numbers on this. And I don't need those exact numbers to tell you that crime is shot up in the state of California. I don't need statistics to tell you that a woman was murdered at Fashion Island Mall, 3 miles from my house, or that we've got other crime stats that are spiking because the police can't deal with all these issues, or that the city of Oakland is under complete crime control across the board. Now, are these issues with immigrants? No, not directly, but are there stats that are proving that these things are overwhelming and that they're totally accurate and that what I'm saying is right? No, because the stats are all being controlled by the current government, which is not being honest with the population. That's why they've lost so much faith of the population. I would love it if I had accurate stats on all these things, but a lot of it is still based on taking stats today and then trying to extrapolate them on a future basis, and we can't really do that. But you can have exist evidence that's saying that if you bring in, and Trevor, I guess that's the thing that I'm surprised at. I don't think we'll have 300 million people walking in the border. But the fact that you should evidence, a minimized case of, how many people are walking in right now, which is still a ton, versus a mass thing that shows that if you had 300 million people, there would be a mass.
I think the market could minimize it. I think the market would just do a better job of minimizing it to the appropriate amount, the appropriate economic amount. I think the market itself would do a better job. A free market would do a better job than any institution could.
But where does the free market end? Because you have to have a border to monitor that free market. You have to have a border that says, "Hey,
to stop criminals."
Market,
Yeah, to stop criminals,
or to stop people from coming in that are not within market. I mean, you're saying that people are coming to this country that they know that the markets are going to work out and eventually they'll stop.
No, they don't. No individual would know it. It's just there's incentives in place, right? If there's jobs here for immigrants, then immigrants will come and take those jobs. If there's no jobs, then they won't. I mean, there's a direct correlation. I don't have this stat in front of me, but I've seen it enough times.
If people are offered benefits, then they are going to be able. Then they're going to know that they can come to the U.S. Well, at what point does that end? Because
the benefits, government benefits should probably end right now. I don't think we would have any disagreement there. But in terms of if we're talking about an ideal world, because there's this kind of back and forth where we're conflating idealism with the current situation. The current situation sucks. I get it. And we should mostly just scrap it and start over. But in terms of broad talking about, well, who should control the flow of immigrants? Right? I think it's the free market that should do that control. And the government should stop the criminals from getting in.
Trevor, if some guy wanted to come in your house and live in your house with you, do you have the right to stop him?
Absolutely.
Okay. So why?
It should be me making that decision, me deciding whether or not I let an immigrant in my house or not the government.
But you are the government of your house. You're the
Correct.
Government of your house. Okay. And the government of the country should be able to dictate who gets to come into the house.
No. All the tiny little household governments should be dictating that. Who comes into their households.
The states?
No, the individuals. I think individuals should decide who they let into their own houses, who they hire in their own businesses.
But except that we all don't live in our house. We all live in the actual country where we go to work and we go to other places and we go to school.
I mean, if we're going to get into the theory of government, does it exist to protect our rights or does it exist to control our economy?